this is Shelley. I work with Nividus and manage its marketing initiatives. I would like to welcome you to today's webinar on automation in accounting and finance. Before we begin with the presentation, let me share a few housekeeping items. If you find any difficulty with video or audio, you can post your queries using the chat window, and you can use the question window to share questions related to the webinar. We will address them at the end of the session, and in case we run out of time, we will reach out via an email with our answers. Now, let me share a quick background of the Nividus company, and then I'll turn it over to our speakers. So Nividus has been around since 2011. Our goal is to enable businesses work at their peak efficiency with the help of our intelligent automation platform. The platform combines the power of RPA, AI, and BPM, and having these three components natively available in our platform is a key differentiator. At Nividus, we are proud of the fact that we have 100% customer retention, and we are being recognized by leading industry analysts across the globe. So there was a quick overview of the company. Now let me invite our guest speaker, Kevin Higgins, Managing Principal of Information Technology at Fidato Partners. Kevin, welcome to the webinar. I would request you to begin the talk. Thank you.
Hi, Shaylee. Thank you for hosting, and thank you everyone for making time today. As Shaylee mentioned, my name is Kevin Higgins, and I'm the Managing Principal of Information Technology here at Fidato Partners. I'm going to give you a very quick overview on Fidato and why we're excited about our partnership with Nividus. So Fidato is a management consulting firm rooted and founded a little over 11 years ago by former colleagues of the Big Four. The primary goal was to offer those same Big Four skills, background, and quality at a more competitive value point. As a result, our core competencies are very deep in the areas of accounting and finance, which we'll go into today, risk management, transformation, and the enabling technologies to support them. We also happen to have one of the industry's best recruiting engines that not only supports our internal lines of service, but our customers as well. Alan, could you go to the next slide, please? Thanks. As we drill down a level and take a look at some of the services we provide across our practice areas, this is where we as a firm get excited about our potential and partnership with Nividus at the potential to drive even more value for our customer base. If you look at all of the functional areas across these service lines, such as financial reporting, operational accounting, transformation, transaction and integration, data management, all have a wealth of opportunity to benefit from robotic process automation and business process automation. Oftentimes, we as a firm are able to deliver the most value when we have the opportunity to engage our customers across service lines, and automation really provides us the opportunity to do that. Alan, could you go to the next slide? So if you take a quick look here at the snapshot of our clients, and if you reference the slide that Shaylee first showed, our clients and their industries really support the partnership with Nividus, and it really starts to make sense. We align very well in areas like manufacturing, life sciences, and then high transaction areas like financial services and insurance. Lastly, from a Fidato perspective, I just want to mention that we take a lot of pride at Fidato striving for 100% client satisfaction, just as Nividus does, by developing strong relationships with our true partnerships with our customers. And as a result, every client, past and present, serves as a reference for us. So hopefully this gives you a 10,000-foot view of Fidato and why we're excited about being here today with Nividus and all of you. With that, I'll turn it over to you, Alan, so we can dig into process automation and the Nividus platform. Thank you.
Great, thanks, Kevin. And I'll just add my welcome to everyone who's in attendance today. My name's Alan Hester. I'm the president of Nividus, and we're going to run through some really exciting things for you today. And I know that we're kind of where we have a large audience and we might not all be on the same page in terms of what our backgrounds are. So let's start off by taking a little poll here so that we can get a sense for where you all stand regarding your automation journey. So you should be seeing a poll appear on your screen, and just take a minute to select one of those options. If none of them fit exactly, just pick whatever is closest, and this will give us a better sense of what your background is. I don't want to slow things down needlessly if everyone is already kind of experienced in what we're talking about, but also don't want to leave anyone in the dust. So we'll just leave this open for a couple of minutes as everyone gets a chance to respond. And I'll start just giving a little bit of a description about RPA. And based on the poll results, maybe we'll go into a little more detail. But as you may know, RPA is all about automating tasks that are highly manual and repetitive by training a bot to do the tasks in the same way that a human would do them. So that means that the bot is working through the user interface rather than having to code things through an API. And this has some great advantages to it by taking this approach. So this means that the automation can be built faster, and it also means that overall it's usually a lot less expensive, and it means that you don't need specialized resources in order to build that automation. You don't have to have someone who is a coder or one of those really expensive, hard to get their time IT department employees. So it opens up a lot more possibilities to your business to embrace this kind of automation in comparison to traditional development. So I went ahead and closed the poll, and it looks like 42% of people say that they're planning to explore in the next 12 months. 24% has something running in production, 18% in pilot or proof of concept phase, and 15% say no plans to explore at this time. So that's great. That gives us some great background. And I think based on that, we have pretty even mix then of newcomers to this, as well as some that might be more towards veterans. So we'll just try to give you the basics so that you won't be completely lost if this is all totally new to you. And if for whatever reason you feel like you're not getting enough detail from a background standpoint or from a deep dive standpoint, certainly reach out to us and let us know, and we can have a session specifically with you to cover whatever points you might miss. And as Shaylee mentioned in the beginning, if at any time during the presentation you have a question, go ahead and enter it into the question window there, and we'll try to take some time at the end of the webinar to cover the questions that we've received. So having described RPA, let's now talk about what are those areas where RPA is really good. We already talked about manual, repetitive tasks. Another area where RPA tends to be really good is where there are a lot of systems involved. So it doesn't really matter what kind of a system it is. It can be multiple web-based systems. It could be Windows applications. It can be older legacy systems. The more systems that you have involved that need to be integrated, usually these are the kinds of projects that become bigger and bigger and more expensive, and they end up getting sorted to the bottom of the pile every time. You know, when your IT department or your technical staff, whoever that is evaluating which project they're going to tackle next, those bigger, more complicated ones with lots of integrations tend to always fall to the bottom because, you know, that they're going to be really expensive, they're going to take a long time, it's going to be a long time before you see any ROI. Using RPA allows you to get these kinds of projects done a lot more quickly because, as I said already, you don't really need to do the integrations using the API. Everything can be done using the user interface. So if you, a common problem that we see, especially with legacy applications, right? A user will be doing something and they'll look at a piece of data on their screen and they'll tell the developer, all I need to do is get that one piece of data that's sitting right there, and I need to put it in over here in this other application. And it seems so simple when you look at it on the screen. However, behind the scenes, a lot of times there are more complicated things happening. Like maybe that field that's being displayed isn't an actual field coming out of a database. Maybe it's being calculated on the fly from a combination of lots of different fields that are in the database. And if you don't have the right resources available to track that down and you don't have really good documentation and knowledge about how that API works, it can be very difficult to do even the simplest task like that. However, when you use RPA to do that same exact task, the result is a far, far simpler process where the bot, if a human can see it on the screen, a bot can see it on the screen, and it can take that data and reuse that in multiple ways. And we'll show a little bit more about how this works as we go through. The next thing is reporting. So one of the things that this kind of technology is really great at is creating an audit trail and reporting and dashboards where maybe your processes are ad hoc, or maybe not 100% consistent from person to person. And so you might not have a nice, easy way to report on a process holistically that will roll up to like the executive level, the kinds of reports that the leaders of the company need in order to run the business. So this technology, and especially with some of our differentiators here, which we can talk about a little bit later, making it a great platform for doing this kind of reporting and dashboarding and creating all the data that you need, especially in industries where there are compliance requirements or audit requirements. So I'm kind of jumping ahead to the compliance bullet point, but these two are very related. The other things on here are kind of all related to data. And as we look at financial services, especially, this is a very common set of use cases for this kind of technology because of the way that it can easily pull data, convert unstructured data to structured, and then do all kinds of validations, comparisons, and conversions. So in financial services, obviously there are a lot of situations where you're doing different kinds of reconciliations, where you're comparing one set of data to another and reporting on the differences. And we will show you more of that as we go along. But these are all great things that bots can do very easily for you. Now, one of the things that bots are kind of limited by is that your processes have to be pretty well defined, right? Because the bots can't make the same level of decisions as what a human could make. However, when you add artificial intelligence technologies into the mix, it opens up a significantly broader set of processes that can be automated with less human involvement. One of the great things about our platform is it allows that the end-to-end business process can be automated, even when there are human steps that need to still be included in the process itself. So those automated steps and the human steps, they can all be run through our system so that you're creating that full audit trail and the data for the complete end-to-end process, which gives the business leaders a great way for being able to track all of that and identify bottlenecks. But from an AI perspective, when we add these technologies into the mix, it gives the ability to make everything faster, more accurate, and it just broadens the kinds of things that we can do. So you will see more of this as we get into the demo, but the ability to accurately pull data out of formats where you think you wouldn't be able to do that and then use that in lots of different ways is really a game changer in a lot of circumstances. So I'm going to show a couple of things up here from the standpoint of the specific domain that we're talking about today. For finance and accounting, obviously there's a lot of different processes involved, and there's a lot of different special terminology that you might use within your company or within your industry. So this chart might not match up exactly to what you talk about internally, but this just kind of gives you some idea about the kinds of processes that we're talking about that can be really good from the standpoint of automating. And I'm just going to walk through a little more detail of each one of these areas just so that you can see that this kind of goes down even a level further, and that there are a lot of different processes involved here where, many of these, maybe you already have a system in place, right? Maybe you say, I mean, this is great, but when I look up there, half of those, we already have systems that do that. And the funny thing is, most of the customers that we talk to and that decide to move forward with this kind of solution are in that same boat, right? You buy an ERP system, you spend a lot of money on it because it's supposed to do most of this, maybe even all of this. It's supposed to do. But what you find in actual fact is that, there are certain pieces of it that end up being disconnected for some reason. And so what you end up doing is you get reports emailed to someone, maybe as an Excel spreadsheet, or maybe the data just gets dumped into an email itself. And then that person has to combine that with some other data from some other reports to get you the kind of information that you're truly looking for, or to get it into the right system. Maybe you have a newfangled ERP, but it has to work with your older legacy application that you're still working with in some cases or for some situations. So what we see is that many companies who are already using technologies that are supposed to solve these problems still have significant opportunities for additional automation when they look at a platform like this, just from the standpoint of being able to glue together the different systems that they already have in place in a fast, easy, painless way, so that they can get that truly end-to-end automation, and more importantly, that they have some consistency and a single place to go in terms of being able to report on everything and maybe create some dashboards. So this is a really great technology, or set of technologies, for doing these kinds of applications. And as I said, when we go through the demo, you're going to see this in more detail. We're going to look specifically at the invoice processing use case. And before we get to that, I'm also going to walk you through a few other case studies so that you could see how other companies are using this kind of technology to solve some of their business problems. So if you are interested in any of these, I know I'm just kind of flipping through these slides here to give you some ideas. If this is something that you would like to spend more time looking through, you can let us know, and we'd be happy to share these slides with you. And obviously, you will have access to the recording after the session is done if you want to get them that way as well. But I don't want to take too much time on this, but I want you to kind of get an idea of the wide range of processes within finance and accounting that are likely targets for benefits from automation, because clearly there are a ton. So having said that, let me just spend a couple of seconds to describe how our platform works and the major components that it's broken into. So we have a development environment which we call Studio. And as I said before, this doesn't require someone to be a coder, but you do have to have some technical knowledge, and you have to have some knowledge about the process that you're going to be automating as well. But with some simple training and practice, anyone who's technically astute can get up to speed with doing these kinds of automations or maintaining them. But many of our customers decide, you know what, we could learn this, but we just don't want to. It's not our sweet spot. It's not what we do. We don't have enough extra resources on our IT team to waste on doing this kind of work. We'd rather just get you to do it, or one of our partners like Fidato to do that kind of work. And so in many cases, the end customer is not working in Studio, but that is available if that's something that you're looking for. Then Control Center is really kind of the heart and soul of the platform. This is a portal-based application where all of the bots are controlled, and this is where all of the human interaction comes through. This is also where all the data and reporting comes from. So any dashboards you have or reports, you will access that through the control center. And usually there's only one control center for the entire enterprise, and that will control all of your bots, however many you have. And so an interesting point to know about the bots is that the bots are generalists. They're not specialists. So it's not like you have to have specific bots trained to do specific things. The control center will take the workload that's being assigned, and it will dispatch it out to the bots as needed. And the only time that you need to get more bots is when you have more work than what the bots can complete in the given set of time. And then the last piece on here is something we call Smart Bot, and this isn't a specific kind of bot. This is actually a library that adds some very sophisticated artificial intelligence capabilities to the bots that you have in the enterprise already. So we have this separated out because it's not required for a lot of the automations that we do, but for some of them, this is a great way to get added functionality, as we talked about before, by adding in artificial intelligence. Okay, so let's get into some success stories and some things that other companies have done. I already mentioned about reconciliation. And so this is a case study that has to do with a bank reconciliation process where there were tons of spreadsheets involved, where there are transactions that have to be matched up from spreadsheet to spreadsheet, essentially from system to system, to identify what might be missing in case there's any kind of a problem. And so this was a very large manual effort that was taking several people a good amount of time to do. And by automating this with bots, we were able to do 85% of the work automatically, improve the accuracy, and also reduce the amount of time that full-time employees were wasting doing this really administrative kind of task. So one of the things we haven't really talked about before that's a great advantage of embracing this kind of technology is when humans do this kind of work, this repetitive work where it's not really a major part of their job, but someone has to do it, so they end up making it a part of their job just so that it gets done. When you're first doing that, you're probably paying close attention. But if you have to churn through the same thing hour after hour after hour, your attention span is going to wane, and that usually results in a decrease in the accuracy of the work that's being done. Whereas the bots, they don't get tired of doing the same work over and over again. They will do the 500th case the same way they did the first. And so that's a great advantage of this technology. The second one is an accounts payable situation where a lot of invoices were being received from a lot of different vendors. across multiple countries, and obviously no control over what form those invoices are coming in as. And we'll get into this a little more in the demo itself, how you can see, even in cases where you don't have good control over the data coming in, you can still do a lot to automate them. So in this particular case, we saw a 90% reduction in the manual work and an 85% increase in the turnaround time and 50% savings of the time spent by the humans who were involved in this work. And then the last one we're going to look at, this is the one that we're actually going to show in the demo. This is an invoice processing case as well, where over 2,500 invoices received weekly in all kinds of formats. Over 6 full-time employees were tasked with the job of wading through these and transcribing data into an ERP system. And as we've already talked about, this is not only time consuming, but it also can result in a lot of errors. So automating this has great benefits in lots of different ways. So let me, from here, jump right into the demo because we're actually running a little low on time, which is funny because I just said this morning that we were going to have no problem with time in this webinar, but apparently I was not right. So what we're going to show is a quick demo where we're going to walk through this invoice processing use case. So this is our control center that we're looking at. And the first thing that we're going to show is how you can create a template for being able to extract data from an unstructured document. So in this case, an invoice. We also have some pre-built templates included in the system, including one for invoices, but we're going through the process manually here just to show you how easy it is. So you decide which fields that you want to capture out of the invoice, let the bots know if there are table fields, and then you select a sample document, and essentially you take all the fields that you wanted to extract and you match it up to where it is in that sample document, and also add additional things like, hey, for this particular type of data that we want to extract, this is generally what it looks like. And here are some other things that it might be called in other versions of invoices that you might see. And all of these things are added to give this template legs so that it doesn't matter what the invoices look like that are coming in, as long as you're extracting that same kind of data, you still will get great results. So now that we've built that template, we're going to show you what it likes to use that template to extract data from some invoices. And you will see that the invoices that we're going to run through it will look far different from the invoice that we use to create the template. But because of the way the process works, our platform is not just using OCR on its own, but it uses OCR in combination with a lot of other advanced AI capabilities like computer vision and machine learning, natural language processing, so that you can get far better results than what you would typically get with just an OCR engine. So we're just showing the control center here, logging in as various people so that you can see that, you know, it tries to tailor what the person sees based on what their job is. So now we're logged in as the person who's responsible for processing and approving these invoices. You can see this first invoice, again, looks very different from the invoice that we use to create the template, but it gives you the invoice there on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, the data that has been extracted. There's also a confidence score that's associated with every piece of data that gets pulled out of here. You can see now, based on this, what he sees, it's getting approved. You also have the ability to reassign this or to send it to someone else for additional approval. But that confidence score, getting back to that, if you have situations where you want to do more straight through processing, you can set that confidence level higher or lower so that that manual checking step is only invoked if the data that's being extracted is below a certain confidence level. So, you know, in these cases that we're showing you here, all the data has been extracted properly, and therefore the confidence scores are pretty high. You can see this invoice is actually an Indian invoice, fairly complicated, more difficult than what we see in a lot of cases, but still the data is being extracted even down to the specific line items. Here we have a scanned invoice, and you can see even in this case that the data is being extracted properly. But as always, if there is something that is missing or wrong, you have the opportunity to create that or correct that right in this invoice or right in this interface. So I'm going to cut that off right there, and I'm going to see if we have any time for any questions. Shaylee, do we have any questions that we could take quickly? I see we have a good amount of questions that have come in.
Yes. So let me pick one that is around the implementation strategy. So the person is asking, what is your recommendation for implementation, though all the automation capabilities are good that you showed?
Yeah, so I think this is going to be a non-answer to your question, because the real answer is it depends, right? I think there are different answers depending on what's right for your particular organization. And this is one of the interesting things about putting in place these kinds of technologies, is that the human element of this is often far more important and far more complicated than the technology itself. And so I think this is where you have to have the right people involved in the organization to know how change is going to be best managed within a given organization, so that the right results are achieved and as quickly as possible. So I think, you know, it's something that for one organization, it's not always the same when you look across companies. I think there are some standards that you can kind of look at that have been successful in a number of different cases. We see a lot of companies where they're driving these kinds of changes out of some kind of shared services organization or a center of excellence. That's a very popular path for doing it. But one of the great things about RPA is that you don't have to bite off everything in your first bite, right? You can start small and you can build from there. So this can give you the kind of internal momentum that you need to build up some internal support, and to also give you a sense for what will the organization really be able to tolerate. So that's something that if you have additional questions on that, we would certainly be happy to discuss that in greater detail. But I don't think there is a set answer.
Okay, let's take another one. I know we are a little over time, but probably we can address this. While each case will be unique, what is the rough average cost of a reconciliation process?
Yeah, that's a question we get all the time, not just related to this particular topic, but for automation in general. I think we talk a lot about how this is faster, easier, and less expensive to implement than traditional technology solutions. And people don't really know what that means. Does that mean it's $5 cheaper, or does that mean that it's a half of what the cost would be? And certainly, again, the real answer depends on your particular use case. But in general, what I could say is this: that we have a program that we call Quick Start. And what this is it allows a company that is just starting down this path to get something up and running in production in 3 to 4 weeks. And we package up all of the licensing as well as all of the services that it takes to create this particular process and put it in production for you so that you can start seeing what kind of ROI that you get. And this minimizes the risk, and it also helps you to know the fixed costs that you're dealing with. And so a typical cost for a quick start is around 50,000 US dollars. So as I said, it depends a lot on the particular use case, but that's a good rule of thumb that you can go with for that.
Okay. Should I pick a couple of other questions? We do have them in here.
Yeah, why don't we just cut it off there, Shaylee, and the rest of you that have questions, we can follow up via email because we want to be conscious of people's time. So we'll end the webinar here, and we'll do some follow-up via email with the rest of you that have questions that we haven't been able to get to here.
Okay. All right, great. So let me just share an ending note here. Alan, thank you, and Kevin, thank you for all the information that you have guys shared. I hope everyone enjoyed the session and found it informative. And again, you can reach out to us at contact@navidus.com in case you have any separate questions that you think we should address. And we would love to help you in whatever ways we can. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for your time.